Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Andrea Alefai and Jeremy Sheffield as our ASL interpreters. In the chat, you will find instructions on how to pin their videos throughout the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Yahira. And hi, everyone. My name is Fred Davey. I want to welcome you. I'm the chair of the CCRB, and I want to welcome you to this December meeting of the CCRB. I'd like to start by having my colleagues on the board introduce themselves, and I will start with Arbor Rice.
Arbor Rice here in Harlem, Manhattan, and I am a representative of the mayor's office.
Thank you. Corinne Irish.
Maureen Irish. I am a mayoral appointee and live in Harlem.
Esmeralda Simmons. And you're on mute, Esmeralda.
Esmeralda Simmons. Good afternoon. I'm an appointee of the Public Advocate, and I live in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn.
Great. Herman Merritt.
Hi, my name's Herman Merritt. I'm a Brooklyn resident, and I'm a City Council representative from Brooklyn.
John Siegel.
Good afternoon, John Siegel. I'm coming to you from my office in Rockefeller Center, and I'm appointee to the CCRB by Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Joseph Puma.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Puma. I'm a City Council representative to the board from the Borough of Manhattan, the borough from which I was the borough where I was raised and where I still live.
Right, thank you. Michael Rivadeneira.
Hi, good afternoon. Michael Rivadeneira. I am the City Council Bronx appointee to the board, and I reside in the Bronx.
Demetrius Carolina.
Hello, I'm Demetrius Carolina, mayor appointee for Staten Island.
Thank you. Nathan Joseph.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Joseph. I'm a City Council appointee, and I live in Staten Island.
Great, thank you. I think I got everybody. Is that correct? Well, before I start my remarks, let's take care of our monthly housekeeping business of approving the minutes from the last meeting. If there is a motion to that effect, I will entertain it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any changes, additions, comments on the minutes? Hearing none, are you ready to vote? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Thank you. I want to start by thanking Mayor-elect Eric Adams for including me on the Transition Committee for Public Safety and Justice, along with our colleague Erica Bond. I should also mention that CCRB members Demetrius Carolina and Arbor Rice are on the Education Committee of the Mayor-elect's transition team. I don't know tonight if there are any other CCRB board members who are on the Transition Committee, but if so, then we'll give them a chance to make that known. All right. We want to thank everybody for their service, and we look forward to obviously working with the incoming mayor. It has been an important opportunity for me to highlight recent initiatives the agency has undertaken in the last few years, such as signing the MOU on the disciplinary matrix with Commissioner Shea, creating the Youth Advisory Council, and partnering with the Young Men's Initiative. The CCRB is steadily going through hundreds of complaints stemming from the Black Lives Matter protests and has so far found 65 officers guilty of misconduct and finally getting accountability for so many wronged New Yorkers. We will continue to investigate and prosecute these cases in a fair and unbiased manner. I also have been able to emphasize the agency's legislative priorities, such as exempting the CCRB from the sealing statutes and giving the agency the final authority over discipline in CCRB cases. We're excited to work with this next administration in fighting for justice and accountability for all New Yorkers. One major win for the CCRB this year was the litigation win confirming our right to investigate sexual misconduct. For 3 years, the CCRB worked to expand its investigations to include this highly egregious form of abuse of power. While the CCRB was fighting for this right, we found other ways to assist victims of sexual assault through our civilian assistance unit. The CAU is staffed by victims advocates, licensed social workers, and trauma services professionals who provide free and confidential assistance to our complainants. They work diligently to connect our most vulnerable civilians with desperately needed city resources, such as social and psychological support services. While the CAU has supported civilians who have experienced sexual misconduct at the hands of the NYPD, there was a lack of recourse when it came to investigating and disciplining that behavior. Therefore, despite lawsuits and pushback, the CCRB continued to fight for the right to investigate sexual misconduct, and in December 2020, we persevered. At the year mark, as it is coming up on a year, on this momentous decision to expand our investigations, our senior counsel to the executive director, Haria Tarakat, will soon give us all an update on how the agency is moving forward with these types of investigations. We'll have this presentation by Haria in the public session shortly. Continuing to expand CCRB's investigative jurisdiction is critical to improving accountability within the NYPD. The board also has the authority to investigate untruthful statements. Just from the 2020 protest cases, 9 officers have been recommended for discipline due to untruthful statements. Without this expanded power, these officers might have walked away without so much as a reprimand. It is key that the mayor and the incoming administration, support the CCRB in expanding its powers to include final disciplinary authority, an exemption from the sealing statutes, and self-initiating complaints in order to properly address police misconduct. I want to thank Chair Adams of the Public Safety Committee for introducing a bill that would allow the CCRB to self-initiate complaints. And thank you to Council members Justin Brannon, Vanessa Gibson, Carlos Menchaca, Keith Powers, Kevin Rowley, and Ydanis Rodriguez for adopting this bill in committee. The bill is now forwarded to the full council, and we implore the full council to pass this legislation at tomorrow's stated meeting. The power to self-initiate complaints is key to shifting the burden away from the victim and creating pathways for all misconduct to be addressed. And as we prepare to welcome new leadership in New York, I would like to thank Commissioner Shea and Deputy Commissioner Tucker, Dermot Shea and Ben Tucker, for their years of service and the working relationship I've had with both of them during their tenure, as they both have indicated publicly that they plan to resign at the end of this calendar year. So thanks to both of those members of the NYPD executive staff, the commissioner and the first deputy, who've worked very closely with this agency and very closely with me to ensure that we're able to represent the people of New York as we've been charged to do. On that note, I will pass it to our CCRB Executive Director, Jonathan Darsh. John.
Thank you, Chair Davey. As the chair mentioned, the agency has several legislative goals that we believe are crucial to effectively investigating and disciplining NYPD misconduct. And in this past month, we've testified regarding 2 of those legislative goals. The first is to exempt the CCRB from state sealing statutes. This is especially important with the coming of the new bias-based policing unit, if that unit is going to be able to do the job that the city council and the people of the city expect it to do, this agency needs relief from the sealing statute so it can have access to all the information it needs in order to conduct those investigations. And the second issue was to give this agency power to self-initiate complaints. This takes the burden off of victims, who are often members of populations that are extremely vulnerable because of other things that have happened to them other than being victims of police misconduct, so that this agency can take the initiative and begin investigations and complete them despite not having heard from the civilian. We hope for support on these two initiatives from the new administration as we work for these much needed changes. Our 2022 Youth Advisory Council is accepting applications. The council is open to all 10 to 18-year-olds. It's an opportunity for youth to share their voices, to be part of a nation-leading police reform effort. We have regular meetings with a final presentation or summit at the end of the year. If you're interested, go to the CCRB website to apply, and we're accepting applications until December 15th. The CCRB continues to review protest cases, and we expect to have a protest report out in the coming months. Some ground rules for this afternoon: please use the raise your hand feature to make comments during the public session, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to stay with us through other people's comments so that when we do call on you, you're there and able to give your comment. And I want to thank the staff and members of the public for making this meeting possible. Have a nice day.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions or comments based on either my remarks or John's? All right, hearing none, we will proceed to a report from our, a presentation actually from our Director of Outreach, Jahai Rose. Jahai?
Thank you very much, Chair Davey. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Chair Davey. Thank you all very much for attending. My name is Jahai Rose. I'm the Director of Outreach for the CCRB. As you all may know, the CCRB, Civilian Complaint Review Board, is the nation's largest independent oversight body over the largest police force in the country. The CCRB investigates, mediates, and in some cases administratively prosecutes complaints of police misconduct against officers of the New York City Police Department. The agency is governed by a 15-member board with 5 seats appointed by the mayor, 5 appointed by the New York City Council, 3 designated by the police commissioner, 1 appointed by the public advocate, and the chair is jointly appointed by the mayor and the city council. You all have met a significant portion of our board so far. The CCRB has the ability to investigate 4 categories of jurisdiction. Those four categories are, we use an acronym name called FATO in order for us to be able to remember them. It's a helpful reminder. F stands for force, A stands for abuse of authority, D stands for discourtesy, O stands for offensive language. Just wanted to provide you with some brief information about the Right to Know Act. The Right to Know Act is a law that went into effect as of October 19th, 2018. This pertains to police encounters, which include stop and frisk and other police encounters, where police officers, under certain circumstances, should identify themselves by providing their name and other information, such as a rank, command, and shield number. With some exceptions, they can explain the purpose of the encounter. Depending on the circumstance, they should inform you of your right to say no when asking for consent to search your person, property, vehicle, or home. And depending on the circumstance, they can offer you a business card with the officer's information, which explains how to make a comment and or complaint about the interaction with the police officer, with the NYPD officer. Civilians can request this business card in all encounters. This is an example of what the Right to Know Act card looks like. Now, there are several different ways to file a complaint about police misconduct. To name the easiest ones would be to file the complaint online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. Or you could call the CCRB's hotline at 1-800-341-CCRB or 1-800-341-2272. Remember, if you see footage of misconduct on social media or in the news, you can file a complaint even if you are not there in person. If you want to file a complaint on or notify us of that on social media, feel free to tag the CCRB at @CCRB_NYC. Additional ways to file a complaint about misconduct to our agency would be to call 311. You could also visit our office at 100 Church Street in Lower Manhattan on the 10th floor, New York, zip code 10007. You could also go to a local police precinct. It does not have to be the precinct where the interaction may have taken place. You could also send a letter to the CCRB in the mail to the same address, 800 Church Street at 100 Church Street, 10th floor, New York, 10007. The CCRB is consistently hiring for investigators. Our investigative unit is comprised of more than 90 investigators of various socioeconomic backgrounds that speak 10 plus different languages. Our team is comprised of the best and brightest undergrad and graduate students from a variety of educational institutions nationwide. For more information about the investigative unit, feel free to visit our website at nyc.gov/CCRB. There are a couple of different ways for you to be able to apply for the investigator role at the CCRB. One is by using the New York City Careers Portal by visiting www.nyc.gov. Interested applicants should search for Civilian Complaint Review Board to view all openings. You could also go to Idealist website, that's www.idealist.org, or join Handshake at www.joinhandshake.com. For all inquiries, if you don't see these job listings posted, feel free to send us an email to careers@ccrb.nyc.gov. As our Executive Director, John Darsh, mentioned, the CCRB does have open applications for our 2022 class for the Youth Advisory Council. These are young New Yorkers that are advising the CCRB about better ways to be able to relate to young people and improving police and community relations on behalf of young people. So applications are open for New Yorkers ages 10 to 18. The applications will be open until December 15th. If you would like more information about the application process, feel free to email the outreach team at outreach@ccrb.nyc.gov. And if you would like an outreach presentation, feel free to connect with us at the same email, outreach@ccrb.nyc.gov. Also, you can feel free to follow us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and social media. Thank you very much, JD.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I add one thing to Jahai's presentation?
Absolutely.
You know, as we're coming to the end of the year, there may be people who are thinking about changing their careers or starting a new career, and the CCRB is actively hiring a new class of investigators, plus also staffing up its racial profiling and bias-based policing unit. And so I urge, if this is an agency, if this is an issue that you care about, please go to that site, see if there are jobs that interest you, because we're looking for good people to help us continue the work, this important work in the next year.
Right. Thank you. Thanks both Jahai, Rose, and Jonathan Darsh. Now, are there any questions or comments for either Jahai or John? All right. Well, thanks again, Jahai. And we'll now move to the next item on our agenda, which is a presentation from our senior counsel, Haria Tarikat. And Haria will present on our latest statistics on investigations related to sexual misconduct. Harriet.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I'm also going to share my screen. And good afternoon, everyone. So I will be going over our sexual misconduct investigations and just giving an overview of what we've done and where we are now. So on February 4th, 2018, the CCRB board unanimously voted to take on the investigation of sexual misconduct allegations as abuses of authority. On May 28th, 2020, the First Department, which is the Appellate Court of New York State, held that CCRB must go through the rulemaking process before exercising its abuse of authority jurisdiction to investigate those complaints. CCRB did so in January of 2021, and the rulemaking process was upheld by the court in November of 2021. The board and the agency defines the term sexual misconduct as encompassing misconduct of a sexual nature alleged by a civilian against a member of the police department. And this includes, but is not limited to, verbal sexual harassment using physical gestures, sexual humiliation, sexually motivated police actions such as stops, summonses, searches, or arrests, sexual or romantic propositions, and any intentional bodily contact of a sexual nature, including but not limited to inappropriate touching, sexual assault, rape, and on-duty sexual activity. Excuse me. Since taking on sexual misconduct investigations, the agency has received 233 complaints within its jurisdiction, containing 335 allegations of sexual misconduct. So far, the agency has completed 62 full investigations against 86 officers. The CCRB has also made 384 sexual misconduct referrals to internal affairs and the several DA's offices. 263 of those referrals have been phase 2 referrals, and the other 121 were phase 1 referrals that were done before the CCRB had jurisdiction. Since May of 2021, the CCRB has made no referrals to internal affairs, but has continued to refer criminal sexual misconduct to the DA's offices. Coming down to our substantiated complaints, the board has substantiated 28 allegations against 23 officers so far. And all of these cases were decided before the NYPD matrix was in place. The board recommended charges against 12 officers, Command B discipline for 2 officers, Command A discipline for 5 officers, training for 1 officer, and instructions for 3 officers. This chart shows the board's disposition recommendations and what the NYPD penalty was. We have received NYPD penalties in cases against 14 officers. So of the 14 officers, the NYPD has deviated downwards when imposing discipline against 5 officers. 4 of those officers were involved in the same incident. In the next couple of slides, I'm just going to go through the cases where the board recommended charges against the officers and talk through what happened in those cases. In case 1, a sergeant and 3 officers were at a Duane Reade when a store employee screamed that someone was stealing items. The officers pursued the victim, pulled him down to the ground, punched him, pepper sprayed him, and handcuffed him. The officers then stood near the victim, who was laying on his side with his pants lowered to his knees, exposing his buttocks and genitals. No officer attempted to help pull up the victim's pants or cover his exposed private areas for approximately 8 minutes until a transporting vehicle arrived on scene. So the board substantiated the allegations of sexual humiliation against the officers, but NYPD did not impose discipline against the officers. None of the officers received discipline for allegations substantiated by the board. The NYPD argued that there was no evidence to suggest that the officers had taken actions to expose the individual, and explained that although the officers could be seen laughing and smiling, there was nothing to suggest that they were laughing at the individual. Finally, the department found that there was no indication that the officers were exposing the individual to public sexual humiliation. The sergeant did receive a command discipline A from the department, but it was for a separate and distinct allegation of failure to render services with courtesy and civility. In the second case, a detective engaged in a text message conversation with a domestic violence victim in regard to a case he was investigating. In the course of the text conversation, the detective made a sexually suggestive remark to the victim, calling her a hot scientist. CCRB substantiated charges against the officer, but the department informed the agency that the matter was handled at the borough level, and therefore the department advocate's office was not going to serve charges recommended by the board, and they administratively closed the case. The department advocate's office let the agency know that a captain instructed the detective that all members of service have a duty to uphold the standards of professionalism, courtesy, and respect towards all individuals that they encounter in the course of performing their duties. And he was also informed that the text messages were inappropriate and misconduct of that nature would not be tolerated. So those were our closed investigations, but the agency continues to investigate allegations of sexual misconduct and currently has over 80 open investigations into alleged sexual misconduct. Finally, I want to end the presentation by talking a little bit about discourtesy and gender-based offensive language. While investigating sexual misconduct, something that has come up in the agency and that the investigations division has talked about a lot is when something is discourtesy versus when something is gender-based offensive language. And really the crux of the question comes from, where does the word get its power from? Meaning, is the word that is being used by the officer gendered, and does it get its power from referencing gender? In the charter, offensive language is defined as a slur or discourteous language related to a protected class. In this particular presentation, we are only talking about those related to gender or gender expression or gender identity. Some examples that pulled from our cases are the use of words like bitch or phrases like suck my balls. From the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition for the word bitch is a lewd or immoral woman or malicious, spiteful, overbearing woman, sometimes used as a generalized term of abuse. And why I chose to highlight this is because the word, regardless of who uses it or who it's used against, here is a term that is specifically referencing gender. Similarly, one of the things that investigators use to guide them when making this call over whether something is discourteous or offensive language are EEOC guidelines. For example, the EEOC guidelines prohibit the use of words that can be used as terms of endearment. For example, honey, dear, sweetheart, or similar expressions. And here, it is the effect of the word that the agency is focusing on rather than the intent. Meaning, even if the person doesn't mean anything by it, the focus is on whether or not the expression is inappropriate. Thank you so much. That is my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions you or any of the other board members may have.
Thank you, Haria. Are there any questions for our senior counsel? I just sort of have a kind of general observation, and that is I think it's extremely important that the agency investigate sexual misconduct. I think in a world and a department that has been so heavily male dominated for so long, and it's not to suggest that non-male persons aren't also capable of and are not guilty of from time to time engaging in sexual misconduct. But I think when in a male-dominated institution that has that kind of deeply ingrained culture, sometimes there are certain assumptions that are taken that are that in that particular context can appear normal. And it's just really important, I think, for the CCRB as an oversight agency to continue to point out in its investigations where what might have been normal behavior can be highly offensive and extremely inappropriate. We live in a diverse, pluralistic society, and our institutions and our conduct have to and should reflect that. So in addition to that, officers of the NYPD who violate the patrol guide and engage in inappropriate behavior, particularly when it comes to abuse of authority and perhaps force and offensive language around sexual related issues, they need to be held accountable, and that's our job. So I want to commend the staff on the work to date. I also want to commend the staff on the work that they are doing to make sure that the victims of sexual misconduct have the appropriate support that they need in order to redirect their lives, as well as to stay engaged with the investigations to allow us to bring them to a conclusion. So thank you, Haria and staff, for your good work, and it's very much appreciated. Member Simmons.
Yes, I just wanted to add my personal thanks to the senior counsel for the presentation. I think it is very important that the public hears the standards that we are enforcing, and that the public understands that things that they considered benign in the past are not benign, and that they will be considered violations. And that we all know from the Me Too movement that extends way beyond CCRB's jurisdiction to everyday life. So I really appreciated the presentation, and I think that you're highlighting what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, even if the conversation is a little difficult for other people to get. It's better for them to hear it up front and learn than to be accused or a victim of such a violation. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none. We will then go to, thank you again, Haria. I really appreciate the presentation, and we'll look forward to more updates.
Thank you,
Thank you. And now we will go to public comment. If you're interested in making a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature, and we will go down the list. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Yahira, would you please call on the first person who's used the raise your hand feature?
Thank you, Chair. First, we'll be hearing from Crystal Calderon, followed by John Lewis Green.
Right. Is Crystal Calderon there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. I was hoping you could see me as well, but I just want to make sure that I make it clear that I'd really love for the Eric Adams representatives to pay close attention, please. So I'll start now. I've been harassed by my landlord, her son, and their acting agents for over the past 5 years in an effort to get me out of my rent-stabilized apartment and intimidate me into dropping litigation we're involved in. I've been threatened on many occasions that I was going to be raped, demanded blowjobs from, and other sexual acts, and I was sexually assaulted in the hallway of the Kings County Housing Court by my landlord's son, who's the manager of the building that I live in. When I have reported this is throughout over the past 5 years, the many instances of sexual harassment and the sexual assault, I've been told by police officers that according to the penal law, you could be kicked, pushed, spit on, and slapped, and it's only considered harassment. What I'm experiencing is only harassment, and this is a landlord-tenant issue for housing court. When I had a one-on-one meeting with Captain Fahey at the 94th Precinct in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, she said, I guess you can file a sexual harassment complaint. She also reiterated that this is, and she said that very passively and annoyed, like she seemed very annoyed. She also reiterated that this is a housing court issue and that it was just harassment. I made her aware of a criminal law passed in 2019 that made it up to a felony to harass a rent-regulated tenant in an effort to get them to vacate their apartment. The definition in that law of harassment is the disturbance of quiet, peace, and repose. She warned me that if an investigation were to happen, if she could somehow miraculously make that happen, I could potentially be found to be guilty of inciting harassment because I didn't walk away while I was being harassed, even though I was 90% of the time in my own home. She and the precinct have since stonewalled me, and they do not respond to my calls. When they do, rarely, they gaslight and they victim blame me. On another occasion, a Caucasian man I'd never seen before, who was accosting me at my apartment door at 2 in the morning and kicking and banging on my door on behalf of the landlord. While he walked by me and an officer speaking to me after the police came, he stopped and leaned toward me, and I have this all on a video recording, and he blew me a kiss, and the officer standing right next to me said nothing. Again, this is in front of my apartment door, the threshold of my bedroom, in front of an officer at 2 in the morning, and I did not know this man. I got an incident report filed, and that was it. And actually the person harassing me got an incident report filed for them because they claimed drunkenly that I harassed them. After speaking out, and this is the last thing, I'm almost done. After attending and speaking out at a community precinct meeting, 94th community precinct meeting, a different Caucasian man accosted me and repeated personal information about me that he said the police had just given him. When I immediately reported that incident to Captain Fahey, about 20 seconds after the incident happened, Lieutenant Frangato hurried me out of the church and began addressing me as my dear. While smirking and telling me to go home because I have real work to do, he continued calling me my dear, even though I gave him my real name, my actual name, and asked him to stop. Captain Fahey just stood there and waited for him to escort her to her car. So the law that I'm talking about is Chapter 40, Part 3, Title N, Article 241, Section 241.02 and 241.05. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really sorry that you've had to go through what you had to go through. You do have a case before us, and we will continue to investigate it thoroughly, and we'll report to you on the outcome of our investigation, I suspect very soon. Next speaker, please, Yahira.
Thank you. Next we'll be hearing from John Martin Green.
Hi there. I am John Martin Green, Community Board 9 member and co-artistic director of Blackberry Productions, a documentary theater company, which in partnership with New Professional Theater and the Community Affairs Division of the NYPD have recently commenced a dual-focused community engagement intervention between Black and brown youth in Harlem and the police called COP, C-O-P-P, which is an acronym for Communities Organizing in Partnership for Peace, and alternately called Commonalities and Opposites in Partnership for Peace, involving a series of theater-based workshops we are conducting, the focus of which involves shifting the culture of community policing and the creation of a theater piece reflecting the experiences of the participants. Just want the CCRB to know what we're doing, and want to thank you for what you're doing as a matter of course.
Thank you, sir. And let me say that any efforts to improve police-community relations, particularly the relationship between the members of the NYPD and young people in our communities and neighborhoods and city as a whole, is very much appreciated. So thank you for the work that you and your colleagues are doing in that regard. Um, any comments from any of the board members? Questions? All right. Harvey, we'll go to our next speaker, please.
And thank you so much, Mr. Green. We'll be sure to follow up and continue working with you and the community board. As of now, we do not have anyone else that has utilized the raise the hand function. I will just give folks just a couple more seconds. In the meantime, we would like to thank staff from Councilmember Adrian Adams' office, Senator Comrie's office, as well as Councilmember Denowitz.
Thank you. And I just want to also express my thanks. I want to thank Councilmember Adams again for her leadership on the Public Safety Committee and the ways in which we've been able to work with her and her staff to ensure that the CCRB has sufficient support at the council level for our jurisdiction over any number of issues. And as I said in my remarks, we are really appreciative of her and those council members who voted to send to the full council. They voted to approve the self-initiation of complaints by the agency. It now goes to the full council for a vote tomorrow. And again, I want to thank her and her fellow council members for their support for the agency, not only in this work, but in other areas as well. Are there any other comments from board members?
Chair Davey, we do have one more member from the public.
Sure.
Soren, can you upgrade Linda Brillant?
Yes, hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
All I'm going to say is that my aunt is dead. You hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
No, and I'm going to put papers about CCRB. I've already put papers about CCRB by the Haitian radio station. Do you guys understand me?
Sure.
Do you guys understand that the Haitian president was assassinated inside the damn home? Do you get that message?
We understand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any more comments, any more speakers? Any old business to come before the board? Any new business to come before the board? Well, before we adjourn, I want to take the opportunity to thank one of our board members who let some of us know after the last meeting that effective December 31 of this year, he is resigning his seat on the CCRB, and that is Mr. Nathan Joseph. I personally want to thank him for his commitment to this agency, for his wisdom, his good humor, his hard work, and just for his friendliness, collegiality. Mr. Joseph, I want to give you a chance to say anything you might like to have to say before we adjourn to executive session. Nathan Joseph.
You put me on the spot, Chair. Okay. Yeah, it really has been a pleasure working with all of you. I've learned a lot. I've made some new friends, and I've really, really appreciated it. And I realize how hard the work that we do here is, and I wish you all the luck and hope that you get more support for all of the things that still need to be done. And thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We really appreciate all your contributions and your leadership, your collegiality. Thank you so much. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of I think we're going to do only two things here. We need to have a conversation about board member status, and then we're going to have a full case that the entire board will review. And those will be, looks like those may be the only two things. The other things we may have had on our agenda, we will not do. If we have time, we will do update on litigation. But for right now, the two primary things are board member status and a full case that we need to review. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive committee to consider these things? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor of adjourning to executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Ayes. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned to executive session. Thanks to the public. Thanks to all who came out. And we will see you next month. Thank you.